F1 is back! After 4 weeks, it's finally back. It's back on the streets of the Azerbaijan capital of Baku, and I'm gonna give my thoughts on the race weekend that just transpired, starting off with the sprint stuff, then getting on to the main race stuff. But before we get into that, can I just talk about Charles Leclerc for a second? Shocking, I know, a Charles Leclerc fan talking about said Monegasque driver. He released a piano song back last week. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. If you have, what do you think about it? Let me know in the comments below what you think of it if you've heard it. I love it. I think it's amazing. This weekend did see the debut of the new sprint format, and to be honest, I never liked the sprint to begin with, but if we're gonna be stuck with them, I am glad they no longer set the grid for the main race. But this does mean that there was only 60 minutes of practice across the whole weekend, and that one FP1 session we got was a little chaotic. Countless yellow flags, the drivers fancying inspecting the escape roads, Gasly's car deciding to say fuck this shit, I'm out. So first off, the sprint, or well, sprint qualifying or sprint shootout or whatever you want to call it. The pole sitter for that wins a cap that looks like it was given to a child who was given a paintbrush and some paints and said go nuts. Okay then, each to their, it's a bit different, each to their own, you do you. And also, the new tyre rule. So you have to use new mediums in SQ1 and SQ2, and then you have to use a new set of softs for SQ3, but Lando Norris, who made it into SQ3, didn't have any new softs, so he couldn't take part in the session. It's a bit of a strange rule. I mean, it was clearly a choice that McLaren made to lose their last set of new softs in Q3 yesterday instead of saving it for the sprint. Clearly, they chose to prioritize the main race, and I can understand that the main race, that's where the big points are scored. But it's still a bit of a strange one. It's a bit of a strange rule, one they might have to, I don't know, look into. And a mega job from Alex Albon, by the way. He is really starting to show what he can do and what the car can do when it's in the right window. And that's good, because I like Albon, but it was not so good for his teammate, Logan Sargent, who hit the wall in SQ1 and as a result of the crash was withdrawn from the sprint. But it was Leclerc with back-to-back poles this weekend. I'll get on to main race qualifying in a minute. His fourth pole in Baku, well, kind of fourth pole in a row at Baku. It depends on if you count the sprint quali pole as an official pole toward it one way. There was one stage of sprint qualifying where the track dominance graph chart came up, and the dominance between Leclerc and Verstappen was fully in favor of the Monegasque driver. But this pole wasn't without mistake. He did make a mistake at turn 5 and he hit the wall on his final run in SQ3. Still held on to pole and didn't write off the car. And the only person Slappery affected was his teammate. And the Red Bulls couldn't improve enough to beat him anyways, but Leclerc did pull up to the P1 board in the pit lane with only half a front wing and a damaged nose, and that's always going to be a strange sight. Of course, Leclerc did not hold out for the sprint race when he finished P2, but given the pace Red Bull have, especially with the DRS open, and the fact that Ferrari seemed to be a lot more harsh on their tires than Red Bull, I feel like it was inevitable that he was going to be passed by at least one of the Red Bulls. In the end, it was just Checo who passed him to take the win and proving once again that he's the king of race sessions in Baku and the king of street tracks in general, while Verstappen wasn't quite able to get Leclerc and he finished third with damage to his car from when he was squabbling with George Russell, or well, when Russell was being aggressive on the opening lap, which Verstappen was not too happy about, given he called Russell a dickhead afterwards. I do find that a little bit funny, Max being annoyed about a driver being aggressive when you take into account some of his own aggression on track. That wasn't such a good day for Yuki Tsunoda. That was a very strange incident from him. He just understeered into that wall in Sector 2 after he had wing damage from contact with his teammate. And then the car to the tire just went, seeing that car tire just rolling down on its own, rolling down out of turn 15, just on its own, then Tsunoda off in the distance with a broken car. Very, very strange. And I'm just baffled as to why they sent him back out onto the track after they pit him. Because it was clear the second he left the pit lane, the car was not okay to continue. My guess is that when he was sitting in the pit box, they were changing the tires and fixing the front wing. They didn't realize how badly damaged the car was, and so they sent him back out, only to be realized, like, wait a minute, the car was not safe to continue. And as a result, they were dinged $5,000 for releasing Tsunoda's car in an unsafe condition. By Baku standards, it was not the most entertaining race we've seen there. We saw some good battles, some some good overtakes. We saw Charles saying there was a cat, and there was a cat. My thoughts on the new format, though, is a topic for another day. Now, onto the main race stuff. And first, qualifying. Alpine, oh Alpine. You guys had a bit of a tricky time. Rushed to get Gasly's car already after it turned itself into a smoke machine slash barbecue in practice, only for him to hit the wall in Q1 and that to end his session. Doesn't rain for you guys right now, but it pours. And I have a comment on Q2 as well. I have to laugh at George Russell having perhaps the most British response ever to being knocked out in Q2, an event that you'd probably imagine a driver, like someone in a Mercedes, would be swearing, but no, he just goes, ah, sugar. I didn't think you'd get a more British response than him going, blimey, but no, he tops it with sugar. And the first run of Q3, can we talk about that first run of Q3? Charles and Max setting the exact same lap time, a 1 minute 40.445. The same lap time, absolutely insane. I could not believe it when I saw it. I don't think anyone could believe it when they saw it. Even Leclerc himself couldn't believe it. But it was Charles on top in the end by just under 0.2 of a second. 3 poles in a row for Charles at Baku. Sergio Perez, maybe the king of Baku overall, most successful driver at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, most podiums at that race. But when it comes to qualifying in Baku, Charles is the king of qualifying at Baku. He remains the only repeat pole sitter on the streets of Azerbaijan. And Sainz was 8 tenths down on his teammate, which is a little bit concerning. But Charles has always been a god tier around Baku, so I think we all expected for Sainz to be slower than Leclerc this weekend. And Sainz did say afterwards that he just wasn't comfortable in the car, which is fair, but still, 8 tenths. And a quick shout out to Yuki Tsunoda for making it into Q3. Mega effort by him. But it wasn't so good on the other side of the AlphaTauri garage, mind you. Nick De Vries into the wall at turn 3. He did what Ricciardo and Tsunoda did 2 years ago. And I will say the Marshals had one hell of a job trying to get that car out of the frickin' Tech Pro barrier. But much like the sprint, Charles Leclerc could not hold on to P1, which I expected. I expected both Red Bulls to pass him, but he did just hold on for P3 ahead of Alonso at P4. And I must say, a brilliantly managed race from both of those two. They clearly both managed everything well to be able to push more and not be far off the race pace of the Red Bulls come towards the end of the race. But Charles finally has had a good problem-free clean weekend this year. He finally, after getting 3 pole positions here, he's finally nabbed his first podium finish in Azerbaijan in Formula 1. But overall, if you kind of ignore Sainz's overall pace this weekend, which I'll get back to in a minute, it was a good weekend for Ferrari. A good weekend for Leclerc. I don't think they could have done much more, as I've said already in the video. Ferrari just don't have the speed of Red Bull. I knew that. I expected Red Bull to pass Leclerc. They did. But overall, as Leclerc himself has said, they maximized things this weekend. They couldn't have done much more, and I agree. Ferrari, they got the best they could out of this weekend. They put everything together. It was a good job from them this weekend. And I mean, hey, as a Ferrari fan and a Leclerc fan, I'm quite happy with their result this weekend. Even though it wasn't a win, fuck it, he's on the podium. Behind the 2 Red Bulls who finished P1 and P2, of course. Sergio Perez becoming the first repeat winner in Baku, and I say it again, he continues to prove that he's the king of the street tracks. 6 wins in Formula 1 for him, 5 of them have been on street tracks. And Max Verstappen just not quite being able to catch him in the end. First of all, he got pretty unlucky with the timing of that safety car just after he'd pit him. And this was when before the race, his team principal, Christian Horner, had said that if a car's in the wall, it's going to be a safety car. De Vries wasn't in the wall as his crap weekend continued, but I mean, it was at the wall, it was stopped. But, you know, shit happens. The pace of that Red Bull though, my god. DRS for a Red Bull versus no DRS for Leclerc with a difference of 30 kilometers an hour. That Red Bull is a demon in a straight line. But elsewhere, Mercedes have a serious drag problem, I think. Hamilton could not for the life of him have the straight line speed, even with DRS, to pass Sainz, who was a bit on the slow side today and this weekend in general, to be honest. Was not comfortable this weekend, and it shows. He was 20 plus seconds behind his teammate at the checkered flag. I know Charles is good in Baku, but holy shit, I don't think any of us expected Sainz to be that far behind Leclerc. Anyway, Alpine, the shocker of a weekend, continued as they finished in P14 and P15 after a pretty anonymous race. Ocon starting from the pit lane as he did in the sprint, and Gasly starting from the back. He pit really early on. They just had a pretty anonymous race, aside from something that Ocon will get onto in a minute. And then Gasly, very anonymous race from Gasly. To be honest, I hardly noticed Gasly all afternoon. And Alfa Romeo also strangely anonymous this weekend, as was McLaren, and Williams were strangely anonymous today as well. But back to Ocon, I'm a little baffled by the strategy for him and Hülkenberg. I mean, they were clearly holding out hope for a late safety car or a late red flag that just didn't come in the end, and they ended up pitting at the last possible moment. And that Ocon coming in, I said I'd come back to it, and here it is. The wall of people that were at the pit entry, clearly waiting for the winner to pull in, and they clearly weren't expecting Ocon to be coming into the pit lane. It was stupid and dangerous, and the FIA are investigating the FIA, because this is an FIA related thing. They clearly didn't expect Ocon to be coming in or something. Something needed to be done to stop something like that from happening again, because that's how people get hurt. Ocon came close to hitting people, but thank God he didn't. And finally, can I just leave a quick mention for Formula 2 for a second? Because, my God, what is it with F2 in Baku that just causes carnage? The end of the sprint race specifically. Only half of the grid finished the goddamn sprint race. On that last safety car restart, at turn 1, Hauger hit the wall, Martins hit the wall, Daruvula ran into him, thank God for the halo, Pourchaire and Leclerc just noped out of it and went off, parked up, got out of the car. Doohan spun off on his own accord before the first corner. Honestly, mad, just mad. What did you think of the 2023 Azerbaijan Grand Prix? Overall, the weekend as a whole was decent. The race itself, the main race, not the most exciting. And the Red Bulls were pushing each other all the way for the win, and Checo managed things brilliantly. We had Leclerc and Alonso pushing each other as well over P3, and they both managed their races very well. And in fact, I think the only things that Charles did wrong all day was he sat in Checo's seat in the cool-down room, and then he stood on the wrong step on the podium and just freaking ran with it. But not the most exciting race if you ask me, but what do you think? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.